Welcome back to Drafting with Mark, and in this one it's going to be another super long video I'm going to do for you. I'm going to create this shape here using AutoCAD, including the isometric, so if that's something that you want to see, please stick around for this video. I will break it up into different chapters, so if you don't want to see certain things, you will be able to skip past it and do things of that nature, right? So, also, let me know how do you feel about these long videos. I'm starting to see if I can just make the long videos as opposed to making 3 shorter ones. Now, keep that in mind that if the videos are long, that means I'll kind of put out less videos a week because everything will be included in one video. All right, so enough of talking about it. Let's go ahead and get started and jump over to AutoCAD. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with our normal stuff that we do. Let's go ahead and turn the ortho on. And then I'm going to check my running O snaps, which are going to be here. So these are going to be the ones that I'm going to use. And then finally, let's go ahead and turn the grid off. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is create a big circle with a diameter, right? I'm going to create that top view. So let's choose a circle, center diameter. I'm going to place this one at the origin, so I'll just type in 0, 0. Go ahead and hit enter. And now the diameter of this super large circle will be 120. All right, so once we go ahead and put that in, let's go ahead and zoom the extents, and then I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so I can keep everything here in front of me. Next, let's go ahead and create those other 2 circles. One has a diameter of 50 and the other one has a diameter of 70. So circle, center diameter. I'm just going to touch the edge of this circle, and then I can come and find the center here. Click here, and then I can type out 70. If you don't want to go looking for the center, luckily we do know where the origin is because we placed everything at the origin. So if I do this circle, center diameter, I can just type in 0, 0 as well, and then I can type in the diameter of my circle, which in this case is going to be 50. All right. Few more things we can go ahead and do on this view here. Let's go ahead and create our circle that's located here. Now this one is on a bolt circle that's at 95 as the diameter. So if I create a circle center diameter from 0, 0 and the diameter is 95, I have located where I can place those 2 circles at. So let's go ahead and choose a couple of other circles, center diameters. Let's click right on this quadrant. Kind of pull out to give a preview of it, and then we're going to type in those diameters, right? We have the first one sitting at 14, and then another circle center diameter right in the middle of this one, and it has a diameter of 10. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete my bolt circle there, and then we're going to go ahead and pattern those circles there. So I'm just going to use a polar array. I'll use a window to place around those 2 circles. I'm going to select here as my center of revolution, or I can type in 0, 0. Now it gives me 6 objects. We're going to change that number to 8. And then we're going to also turn the associativity off. So I'm going to make sure that this is not blue, meaning that I want each one of these circles to be individuals. All right, let's go ahead and close this. And so now we have those 2 created. Let's go ahead and create those other slots that are running through the top of here. So we're going to start off by creating a line from 0, 0. And what I usually like to do is I'm going to zoom in here is just get a little bit beyond that. Now we're going to use the offset command. Give it a distance, which is 3. Enter. I'm going to select this line here. And then if you want to select the multiple option here, it's going to allow you to kind of speed through this a little bit. So I can go to multiple. I'll click 1 time above it, and then 1 time below it, and then hit the escape button. All right, let's go ahead and erase this center line here. And then we're going to trim, right? So let's go to trim, and then trim off these portions of this lines here. All right, let's go ahead and escape out of that command. Let's go back to the polar array. And then once we do that, go ahead and put a window right around those 2 lines that you just trimmed. The center of our revolution is here, so make sure you hit enter after you select your objects. It should do 6 because 6 is by default the default standard. And then we can choose close the array. Let's go ahead and start working on some of this down here. So we're going to work on our front view now. What I'm going to do is choose the construction line option here. And then I'm going to work on half of this, right? So I'm going to go right through this quadrant. And then it looks like I forgot to hit the vertical option. Let's go ahead and escape out of that one. And let's use the construction line again. Vertical. And then place them at these quadrants. So just keep clicking right along these quadrants. Now, I know that we're going to have some kind of things happening here, but I'll explain that later as I keep drawing a lot of this stuff. All right, so that's all I'm going to use for right now. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and draw a line going right across here. I'm going to choose copy, select this line, hit enter, pick a base point somewhere out here since we're moving at a distance. I'm going to aim downward and I'm going to type in 32, enter, 48, enter, and then 80. Now where I got the 48 was I added the 32 plus the 16 and that gave me the 48. All right, let's go ahead and start trimming off some of this so we can clean it up. I like to use EX trim. Go ahead and hit enter. And what I'll do here is I'll select this top line and then click above it. And I'll hit the enter button on my keyboard here. Select this bottom line, click below it. Go ahead and hit enter again. Select this line here, click to the right, hit enter. And I'm going to select this left line here and then click to the left of it. All right, so now I have everything that I need as far as creating that shape, right? I went through these quadrants and things of that nature. Now I have to kind of figure out which one of these circles are going to be first, right? So you'll notice that if I'm looking at it this way, this circle is going to be in front of this circle. And the only reason I'm telling you that is that this edge here, it's got to be showing. So that's going to be the more important edge. But I'm not going to worry about that quite just yet, right? Oh, also it looks like I also grabbed those hidden lines that are going through the middle of it. Let's go ahead and delete those for now. Okay. So what we have here is that we do have the circle here, and we also have a hidden line that's going through the middle here. Let's go ahead and take care of that one as well. All right, so now I have this shape, right? And it goes up here along the top and it rotates back that way. So let's go ahead and start working on creating that. Let's go to the trim command. And what we have here is I'm just going to trim off these two portions here, right? I'm going to also start working on trimming off this portion here of this one, because that's going to be the center part that it runs through, right? So here is my center that it runs through everything, which means that I can also trim off this line here. Now this is that outside part that we were talking about earlier, and just to kind of eliminate a little bit of confusion, I'm just going to go ahead and trim those off as well. All right, let's go ahead and erase these. Now remember that these are my outside circles here. So now I'm going to come and take a look at drawing these two. So I'll go back to construction line, vertical. Then I'm just going to hit these quadrants here. And now when I'm looking at it, I don't need to actually put in the center ones yet or the thickness of those yet. I'll let my section do that. All right, so now I have these circles here, right? So I have one that's in front. And then I have these two in the back. Let's go ahead and use the offset command. Give it a distance of 2. And I'll offset this line, one to the top, and then one here to the bottom. All right. Let's go ahead and use the trim command. So I'm going to go to trim. And what I want to do is I want to extend first. So trim is my primary function. So I'm just going to hold down the shift button. And then I'm going to extend these lines here, right? Then if I let go of that shift button, then I can just start trimming these off. Likewise, when I come in and I zoom in, now you'll notice that this is the outside line. So that's what I was kind of explaining earlier. So that's why I trimmed that one shorter. The one that I need is going to be this line here. And then this one. So we'll come back and erase that one later. Also, looking at this line here, I'm just going to trim off right here and between here, right? And then what I'm going to do is trim this gap off between here. So this is that whole entire representation of this circle here and this circle, right? So I have those two outside circles that represent it. Now, luckily, if you got a newer version of AutoCAD, the trim command is also a delete function. So I can just go ahead and delete that line here that I don't need. And then we're going to trim off these portions here. So I'm just going to trim these up. Let's go ahead and get rid of these two lines here. I'll hold down that shift button again. Just going to extend these two lines. Okay. Let go of the shift button, and then I'm just going to trim off this portion right in here. Right. Let's go ahead and finish this a little bit more. Let's go ahead and trim off here and here. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete this line here just by selecting it. And I'm still in the trim command, right? So everything I have now should be done as far as this portion of this. Let's go ahead and hit the escape button. I'll delete these lines here. I'm going to delete these lines here. I'm going to use the mirror command to get my other half here. So I'm just going to go to mirror. And I'm going to select all of these objects. Go ahead and hit enter. Then go from this endpoint to this endpoint. Go ahead and hit enter again, right? So now I'm going to use the fillet command. So fillet. I always check my radius. You can see that it's set to 0. Go ahead and hit enter. And I'm just going to select this line here. It goes to here. I'll just hit the enter button again. I'm going to select this line here and then go into here, right? Now, this should let me do one big trim here. So I'm just going to trim. And I'm just going to start right here. One left click, go all the way across. Till I capture everything that's on the inside there. Alright, so now I have this shape kind of defined for me. So that's everything I need there. And remember that this line here is going to wind up being deleted later. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start working on this top half. Now what we have here is the top half is that the actual edge of that is actually at this point here. So when I come and use a construction line, vertical, I'm going to select this endpoint here. Let's go ahead and escape out of that. And you can see that it's just slightly over from what it should be, right? Let's go back to the trim command. And what we're going to do is we're going to take away this outside line here. We're going to trim this portion here, and then I'm going to select this line here to delete it. I'm going to work my way here, and I'm just going to trim off this portion here. Then I'll hit escape. Now the bottom half of this is correct, so therefore I'm not going to mess with the bottom half. So I'm just going to delete that line there. So the top part is done right, and now the bottom part is done right. One last thing I need to do is just mirror those across. So I'll go to mirror. I'm going to select these two lines here and these two lines. Go ahead and hit enter. Go from that endpoint to that endpoint. Go ahead and hit another enter, right? So now we have our inside part here kind of drawing for us. Let's go ahead and delete these two lines here. And now we have one more thing to work on, which is going to be these slots. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go draw a line. That's a construction line, right? I'm going to use vertical. And now what I'm going to see in the front is going to be this endpoint and that endpoint. Also, I'm going to see these two endpoints. So I'm going to see right between that. And I don't know if you can kind of see it. You also going to see at that endpoint also. Likewise, on this side, I'm going to see that endpoint in the back of my drawing. Zoom in down here. Now I'm going to offset this line down 30. Now you can see that both of these lines are separated, so I'm going to select both of them, and I'll just use the join command. Now we can use offset, give it a distance, which is 30. Select this top line, click below. Alright, let's go ahead and use the trim command. So I'm going to go to trim, And I'm just going to trim off right between here. Do the same on this side. I'm going to trim off between here and here. Here and here, right? Let's go ahead and knock out the top part as well. So just trim right across here and hit escape. And then let's go ahead and get rid of these extra lines that are located here. So now when we're looking at this shape, we can see that this is kind of how we're going to see it if we're reviewing it, right? I'm going to go ahead and clean this up just a little bit before I make my other view. And the way that I'm going to do that is use the overkill command. So I got overkill. I'm just going to select these objects. I'll hit enter. It's going to bring open a dialog box. And all I'm going to do is say OK to that dialog box. And you can see that I had some overlapping segments that cleaned up and some duplicates that were also cleaned up. So that's one of the things I like to do just to clean up my drawing. Okay. So now we have the top view created. We have the front view created. We need to cut a section through this, right? We want to show the internals of what's happening on these sides. All right. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm just going to simply create a copy of both of these, right? So let's go ahead and create a copy of both of these. Pick here's my base point, and I'm just going to copy it over here along the side. All right, that section is going to run right through here, and it's going to look forward, right? So what I have here is I have the outside of these created correctly. The internals here is what I need to go ahead and adjust. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and delete these little humps here because we're not going to actually see those when we create this. Now we're going to see only the outside ones. So I'm going to go back to the construction line command, use vertical lines, and then I'm just going to click each one of these quadrants. Now I am selecting the inside circles on these because that's what I need to see. And kind of keep showing you all of these. All right. Let's kind of zoom into here. And then we're going to go back to the offset command. Select a distance of 2, enter, and I'm just going to offset these objects going up that way, and then this one going that direction. I'm going to go to the trim command, and then this time I'm going to select a cutting edge. So I'm going to select cutting edges. I'm going to select this line here, and then this line. Go ahead and hit enter. Get rid of those two lines at the top on this side, likewise on that side. And then here along the bottom, we're going to get rid of those. I'm going to take away that gap in between here, right? Let's go ahead and escape out of this. And what we need to do now is just kind of finish up these. So I'll go back to the trim command, go to cutting edges. I'm just going to swipe right across here along the bottom. Go ahead and hit enter. Then I'll trim between here and here. Likewise on this side. Trim out the internal parts on both sides of these. Let me zoom in a little bit more. And I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side here. I'll just use a fence to kind of speed this up. All right, and you can also see that I want to extend these lines back down, right? So I'm just going to go right back to cutting edges. And all it's going to do is tell me to redefine them. I'll select these two edges. Go ahead and hit enter. And I'll have to hold down the shift button. And then that will extend these lines here. All right. Let go of the shift button. Go back to cutting edges. And this time I'm just going to hit enter. So I'm not going to select anyone, and what that does is tell AutoCAD to use the whole entire drawing as a cutting edge, right? Now I'm remembering I'm still in the trim command, so I'm just holding down the shift button to extend. Because you're going to see that this kind of extends right around these corners. All right, let's hit escape. And then one last thing we have to do here is that we have to reverse these two. Because if we're looking along the back half here, you're going to see that we're going to see the lines here and here. And we're also going to see a line cutting right through that way. Alright, so I'm just going to mirror these. And I have to do these individual. So I'm going to mirror that one. And I'm going to go from this midpoint going straight up. Click here. And I will answer yes to this question. Do the exact same thing again. So I'll go to mirror. Window around this. Go ahead and hit enter. Click on this midpoint. Go up. Left click. Answer yes to the question. And that's going to get rid of the source one. Alright. Last thing I need to do now from here is I can just delete this view here. But I'm going to save that. So if you're going to stick around and work with me on when I create this isometric, I am going to use that view just for a little bit and then we'll wind up erasing it. Alright. So the next step we're going to do is going to be the isometric. Alright. So the first thing I like to do in isometrics is switch over to an isometric view by selecting here. So now once I'm in the ISO draft mode, I'm going to switch to isometric top, and you can use the F5 button to toggle, right? So I toggle to ISO top. I'm going to type in EL, enter. I'll click here's my base point for my center. Oh, I'm sorry, hit escape. EL, enter. Then I got to type in the I for the ISO circle. And now I can click a center point here. I'm going to tell it that I have a diameter. And then I'm going to tell it my first diameter, which is going to be 70. I'll go back to it again. So EL, and then I'll hit I, enter. Go to this center. Go down and select the word diameter, and then type in 50. So those are going to be my first two diameters that I'm going to need, right? Next, let's start copying this down. So I'm going to copy this down to that first height that we have, and that height is 32. So I'll go to copy, select both of these, hit enter. Oh, hit the wrong button there, enter. Then I'll hit the F5 just to rotate. So I'm looking at isometric right now. I'll click a base point here, and I want to go down a distance of whatever my height is going to be, right? In this case, it's going to be 32. Let's go ahead and draw some lines going right across here. So from that quadrant to that quadrant. Also, this quadrant to this quadrant, right? Next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this inside circle here. And then I'm going to trim off this portion on the inside. Alright, so once I'm kind of done with that, I have that created. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on my other shape here. I was going to work on those slots that are going down, but I'm trying to think, did I move this circle down 32 or did I move it 30? Well, let me check really quick just to be on the safe side. I'm going to copy these two circles, click here, go down a distance of 32. Okay. And it looks like I did do it right. Okay, I was second guessing myself there. I'm just going to go ahead and trim these off. Alright. So now I'm going to deal with just the slots that are located on here, right? So I have these slots that are running through. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a line going from this center, going this direction, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me switch to isometric top, and it really shouldn't matter here. But it's still going to go this direction. Alright, and next thing I want to do is I know the thickness or the offset that I need to do that, but we can't use the offset command when we're using isometric. So I'm going to use a copy. Click here. I want to go this direction, 3, enter, and then I want to go this direction, 3, enter. Right? Now I'm placing that along this way, and now that I'm thinking about it, I actually should bring this slot going this direction. So let's go ahead and do that again. Let's draw a line from this center, and let's bring it this direction. Yeah. That'll give us a little bit easier time when we're creating the other ones that are going around here. Let's go ahead and copy, select that line there, base point here. I'm going to go 3 that direction, and then 3 this direction. Alright, let's go ahead and get rid of that middle line there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take both of these two circles, and I'm going to copy them. Go ahead and hit F5 again to switch out of isometric top. Come straight down and type in the distance of 30. Alright, let's draw a line from this intersection going straight down here. And then another line from this intersection here going straight down to here. I'm going to trim. And I'm just going to kind of trim these off, and I use the TR option as opposed to going up there and selecting trim. And I just want to trim this portion off that's going around here. Okay. Oh, sorry. And while we're still in the trim command, let's go ahead and get rid of this at the top. So I'm just going to trim off here and here. And I'm doing this very kind of systematically. That way I don't have too many lines on here at one time. All right. So I can trim right in between there now, and likewise here. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, right? So I'm just going to select here, go to copy, take this endpoint, and place it at this endpoint. Then I'll go ahead and trim this up, right? So I'm just going to trim. Because you won't see any of this stuff that's going on behind it, right? So let's go ahead and trim these off. All right. So now let's go ahead and delete that. Let's go ahead and work on the other side likewise on that one. So we're going to go back to the line command. I'm going to go from this center. I'm going to switch over to isometric left. I'm going to go this direction. Hit escape. Hit F5 again to switch to isometric top. Then I'm going to go and use the copy command. Select that line there. Hit enter. Pick a base point. Select. And I'm just going to go 3 this direction and then 3 this direction. Go back to copy. So I want to copy that line. So I pre-selected it in this case. So I'm going to go to copy. I'm going to select that endpoint here. And then I'm going to place it along. I have an intersection that's located here and one that's located here. And I'm also going to see that here. Alright, let's go ahead and trim off some of these lines. So I'm just going to trim off this line to here. That one goes there, here, and here. Okay, let's escape out of this and let's go ahead and get rid of that center line there. Alright, now I'm looking at this and I can see that I won't see the bottom ring of that one, right? So I'm not going to even worry about copying this down just to check it. What I am going to do is just trim off this portion here on the back side. So I'm going to trim off that. I'm going to trim the gap in between here and then here. And we're going to trim off these 2 lines here. Alright, so there's the easier lines in all of this whole situation. Now I have 2 more lines that I do have to create. I have a line going this direction and one going that direction. In order for me to figure that out, I have to kind of use some geometry off of here. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and, let's see, switch out of ISO draft. I'm going to draw a line from that center going to that quadrant. And now I need to put a line right in between here going up that direction, right? Well, we know the rotation of that. So I'm just going to go a rotate. Select my circle, my line here. I'm going to select that endpoint. I'm going to choose copy. And then if you know that you have 6 of them and the angle or complete angle that you're going to need is 360. So 360 divided by 60 should be, by 6 should be 60. Let's go ahead and type in 60. Okay. Escape from that. I'm going to draw a line from this endpoint going up. And then I'm going to get a fillet command, right? So I'm going to go to fillet. And I'm going to go here to here. Now what this is going to give me is the length of that line that I need to create those other ones at. So in order to get that length, I can choose the distance command. Then I'm going to select from that endpoint to that endpoint. And you see that it does give me a number, right? So that number is sitting at, I have 103,923. So 103,923. And it's kind of good to write those numbers down sometime. And what I'm going to do next is that now that I have that number there, and I think I went out too far. No wonder that line is so big. Give me 1 second here. It's the wrong length. Let me go ahead and put that line actually to this endpoint. There we go. And then let's use the fillet command on that one. So I'm going to fillet between here and here. And now this is the length that I need. So I'm just going to measure that length. So I'm going to go a distance from that endpoint to here. And it's giving me 60 point, and I'm reading here along the bottom 6218. All right, so that's going to be the length that I'm going to use in order to help me construct the rest of this. All right, let's switch back to isometric. I want you to draw a line that's going right across from here. So I'm going to click here. I'm aiming this direction. I do know the length that it takes to get out there. That is 35, so I can type in 35. Now keep in mind that I am on isometric top. Then I'm going to go this direction, and then I'm going to type in that number, 60.6218. And then I'm going to come right back to that endpoint, right? We can do the exact same thing on the other side, right? So I can go a line from here, going out to here, and this is 35. Then I'm going to escape, and I like to keep everything consistent, so I'm just going to copy this line here from that endpoint to here. And we can draw a line going right down to here. Now isometrics, they don't have to be super exact or things of that nature, but ideally, you know, it's a good idea to try to keep them close as they can. Remember, you're not going to put any dimensions to them or anything of that nature, but you know, so sometimes it's good to have them exact, but I understand there are some limitations with it. All right, so what I have here now is I have a line that's going across there. I'm going to switch out of isometric top, and what I need to do is I can copy these lines. Let me go back, and I can copy these lines, but you'll notice that if I copy these and I go 3 this direction, and then if I go 3 this direction, I get something that's, you know, kind of accurate to what I want it to be, right? And that's totally fine, and we can work with that, right? So let's do the same on the other side. So let's go and copy. Select this line here. Pick a base point. I want to go 3 this direction, and then 3 this direction. You'll also notice that I do have my ortho on, right? Let's go ahead and work with it, kind of completing these two first before I work on the ones on the front half here. All right, so let's first get rid of these 2 middle lines here. Then we're going to go and use the trim command. So we're going to trim these back to here. And I'll do the exact same thing with both of them here. I'm going to trim off this portion here. Let's get rid of our straggly line there. I'm going to do the same on this side. Let's trim between those gaps. Alright, so hit escape. I'm going to take this line here, copy it. I'm going to choose from this endpoint here, and I'm just going to place it along here. Here is weld, and I will also see it here at that endpoint. I'm going to do it here, here, and I'm going to also see that arc here. All right. So now that I have those kind of created the way I want it to, right? Let's go ahead and clean up one of these. I'm going to trim off this portion here. Oops, looks like we got a little bit too much. I'm just going to use the undo in here. And now I'll trim it. And it couldn't see it, and sometimes it will do that for you. So I'm just going to trim this line here. Right? And then we're not going to see that arc at the bottom of this one, so that's just going to allow me to go ahead and trim all the way up to here. Now on this one, I will see that arc that's at the bottom of here and the arc that's at the bottom of here. So I'm going to go ahead and escape from here. I'm going to go to copy. I'm going to select both of these two arcs. Go ahead and hit the enter button. I'm going to switch out of isometric top into isometric right or left, and it doesn't matter. I'll click here as a base point. I'm going to come down, and then I'm going to type in 30. Okay, so once those are moved down there, what I'm going to do next is just extend these two arcs around, right? So I'm just going to extend it there, and you can see that those will extend. And now that I have those extend, if you hold down the shift button, remember we can go back into the trim command. So that's what I'm going to do here. And I'm just going to trim these arcs around, just so I keep everything all nice and neat, right? Let's go ahead and extend this one more time. It needs to actually go to that line there. Okay. Let's go ahead and escape out of this. I'm going to draw a line from this endpoint coming down to this endpoint. And now when I trim off this portion here on the back side, that should make it all nice and clear on this side, right? Alright, so now we do have that arc that's sitting here, and we can see that, and we do have the openings. Now we just need to work on the front two, which are located somewhere along here. Luckily, we still have these two lines here, so I'm just going to select both of them. I'm going to go to Move. I'll select this endpoint and place it on this endpoint here. We can go ahead and draw a line now from this endpoint. And I can either go to the center or that endpoint here, and then I'll just click it to here. Alright, now I have the location of my next two slots. I'm just going to use the copy command, right? Let's switch back to isometric top first. Looks like I turned it off. Let's go isometric top. Select this line here, go to copy, pick a base point somewhere here. I'm going to go 3 this direction and 3 this direction, right? Yep. Go ahead and hit here. And go 3 this direction. There we go. And next, I'll do the same thing with this line. So I'm just going to go to copy, select this line here, enter, click here. I'm going to go 3 this direction and then 3 that direction. Alright, so next, let's go ahead and get rid of all of this excess stuff here. We don't need it anymore. And now we're able to start trimming and working on this part, right? So let's go ahead and trim. Start trimming this down to here. I have that gap that's located here. And let's go ahead and trim off these back lines. And trim a few more things. And we're kind of trimming out all of this stuff in here, making it all nice and neat. Okay. Now that we have that, let's go ahead and select this line here. I'm going to copy it. And the reason I keep selecting this line, it's already set to that distance of 30 going down. So I'm going to select and place them at these two endpoints and then there. I'll show it up on these two endpoints and then one in the back here. Alright. Let's go ahead and trim off this portion in the back, since that'll be the easiest one to clear up. Alright, and we're going to trim off that portion, right? We need to get this arc to wrap around and go all the way around there. So let's go to the extend command. And then I'm going to select a boundary edge. And I'm going to tell it that I want it to come to this line. Go ahead and hit enter. And then send this one all the way around there. Right? Hit escape. Now I'll go to trim. And I'm just going to trim off these portions in between here and here. Right? Okay. Likewise, I have this arc here that needs to wrap around and kind of come to here. So I'm just going to extend that around and let's see. And I will see a little bit of it here on the back side here. And so I might actually have to put that line back just to connect that other line there. And actually, before I do that. Let's go ahead and do that now. What I mean by that is I'm just going to delete that line. And I'll go ahead and copy this line from this endpoint to that endpoint. And so that way when I draw this line that's connecting that endpoint to here, it's actually going at the right angle, and then I can trim it off, right? So let's go and get rid of that one, and then here. Okay. So the only arcs that I have, oh, it looks like I forgot that one as well earlier from before, but I'll go ahead and fix that here in a second. So I want to go ahead and extend. Go to boundary edges, and I want to select this line here. And I want to extend this arc here on the inside all the way around to there. So I'm going to extend that one. Let's go ahead and hit the escape button. Let's go ahead and put a line in from here to that endpoint, right? And then we're going to go back to the trim command. And we're going to trim off that portion that's kind of wrapping around to what we need. Alright, let's go ahead and make sure that we have that right distance there. And the way we're going to have to do that is going to delete this line first. Go ahead and copy this object from that endpoint to that endpoint. And now I can draw a line from that endpoint to here. And then I can trim this. And I think we have all of our slots completed, right? So that's kind of one of the toughest ways or unfortunate things about doing isometrics, is that slots are a little bit difficult to do. Alright, so I'm still in isometric top. I'm going to type in EL and then I again for iso circle. I'm going to go to that center. This one has a diameter of 120. Alright, so I'm going to work on this one, and then I'll go ahead and start making me up the other ones around it, right? I know that when I trim this off, I'm going to trim right this back portion off here, in between here and here. Okay, let's go ahead and delete that. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and start putting my little lines on this one, right? Or my little circles or cylinders. So I'm just going to draw a line, and I'm going to start at this center. And then I do know how far I need to go out, right? The bolt circle for this thing is at 95. So I'm just going to type in 95 divided by 2, pointing this direction. Alright, so that's the first line that I need. I'm going to go ahead and type in EL, iso circle. So I click here. And instead of going down there and selecting diameter, you can hit D on your keyboard and then type in 10. I'm just going to hit enter to take me back to the ellipse command. Hit I for iso circle. I'll go to here, type in D, enter, and then type in 14. Alright, next let's go ahead and copy both of these going up. So what I'm going to do is switch out of isometric top. Just by hitting F5, I'm in isometric right. I'm going to copy these two objects. Pick a base point here. I'm going to go up a distance of 2. Alright, so from here I'm going to start deleting some things, right? I'm going to get rid of that inside circle there. I'm going to draw a line from these two quadrants. So from that quadrant to that one, go back to the line command, and you can hit L, enter, or you can select the icon here at the top. And I'm going to go from that quadrant to that quadrant. Zoom into this. Let's go ahead and trim off those other extra portions there. So I'm just going to trim here and there, and hit escape, and then I can get rid of that one. Alright, so next I want to go ahead and place one of those circles here along here, and also one in the front. So I'm just going to draw a line now from this endpoint going this direction. Once again, 95 divided by 2. That'll get me that one. I'm going to draw another line from that endpoint aiming this direction. 95 divided by 2. Okay, let me switch back to isometric top. So I'm just going to select here in the bottom. Okay, I'm going to draw a line from here going this direction. and that's going to be also 95 divided by 2. I'm just letting AutoCAD do the math for me. Alright, so now I've perfectly placed 4 of these, right? Let's go ahead and copy this. And I'm just going to place them at those 4 locations, right? I'm just going to go to copy. I'm going to go from this endpoint. And I'm going to place them at these endpoints that I created for myself. That's located around here. Alright, let's go ahead and get rid of some of this stuff here. And all I need to do is keep one of these lines. Alright, let's go ahead and trim off these portions here around the back. So I'm just going to go to trim. And we're going to trim off that portion here. Likewise on the other side here. It's got a little bit more work on this side. So I'm going to trim between here and here. And I'm just going to trim right in between there. Go ahead and hit escape, and then I can get rid of all of this. I'm just hitting delete on my keyboard here, right? Alright, so now I have those drawn, right? Next, for the other ones, what I have to do now is I have to switch out of ISO. So I'm just going to select that icon there. I'm going to draw a line. Sorry, one mistake before I do that. Let's go ahead and put that back on the ISO. Let's go ahead and type in ellipse. I'm typing ISO circle with the I. I'm going to start at this endpoint, and then I will go to diameter and tell it that it is 95. And the reason I did that is I cannot trust that that is the same distance going across this direction, right? So when I select out of the isometric, I'm going to draw a line from this endpoint going straight that direction. I'm going to draw a line going from this endpoint going that direction. And then one going from this endpoint going down to this direction. Alright, so that's going to be the other places where my other circles will be. Let's go ahead and copy this. Go ahead and select it from that very bottom circle there. And then you can just place them at these endpoints. Let's go ahead and get rid of all of that now. Alright, next I'm just going to go ahead and switch back to isometric. I'm going to switch to isometric right. Let's go ahead and copy this circle here, going down a distance of 16. I'm going to draw a line from that quadrant going down to here, and likewise on the other side. Alright, and then finally what I need to do is I need to trim off this portion here. So I'm going to go to trim. I'm going to select the cutting edges just so I don't have to do so much trimming, and I will select those 2 lines that I just created. Go ahead and hit enter after you've done that. And that should allow you to trim off that portion there. Alright, and then finally we have our last circle here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this. Pick a base point here, and I'm going to go down a distance of 80. Right? I'm going to extend that circle that I just created, right? So I'm going to extend this thing going around that way and around this way. Now, luckily you can see that when I select that, the squares are on the inside. Those are the quadrants to that, so there's no need for me to really kind of put anything else there, right? So that's going to be the isometric for this one, right? Hopefully you enjoyed that. Now the next thing we're going to kind of transitioning into is going to be doing the dimensions and title blocks. So let's go ahead and start on that now. Let's go ahead and escape out of that. Let's get out of isometric. And now we're ready to do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get rid of this. And then we're going to start on creating a title block. So we're going to go with the rectangle command first. So I'll go to rectangle. Next I need to pick a starting point, right? So 0, 0. Then 17, 11. Zoom into it. I'm going to use the offset command. 0.25 is going to be the distance. Select here, move it to the inside. Select both of your rectangles. Go ahead and select create. And all that does is create it to a block. I'm just going to call it TB, short for title block. Go ahead and hit OK. So now my title block is created. Let's go ahead and make a couple of layers. So I'm going to click on the layer property, the new icon here. I'll create one that's called center. And let's create one that's called dimension as well. So I'm going to select here and DIM. The center one, let's go ahead and make it a color of, let's say red should show up. And for our dimensions, let's try CN and see if that shows up. All right, for the color, for the center layer, let's go ahead and select the word continuous on that line. Go ahead and hit load. Scroll down until you see center 2. Hit OK. Select the center 2, and then hit OK. And that should change that one to that layer. All right. Next, we're going to go ahead and close this. We're going to select our title block recreated. Do a right click. Go to properties. And then from here, I'm going to scale it up to, and I think 30 should be kind of appropriate for this one. Let's go ahead and hit escape. Zoom out. Everything looks to be fine. Let's go ahead and move all of this to the inside, right? So I'm just going to move this over. I'm going to turn off my ortho just so I get a little bit more freedom to move this around. And then I'm going to move my isometric as well. So I'm going to go to move. A window around this. Click. And then I'm going to place my isometric into here. Now I'm going to scale my isometric down. It really doesn't need to be this big. So I'm just going to select it first. I'll choose scale. Pick a base point somewhere near it. And then let's make it 0.75. So we're going to scale it down just a little bit. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is I'm ready to put my center lines and center marks and things of that nature on here. So I'm going to type in the center layer command first, and then I'm going to set that value equal to cen, which is the layer that we created. Next, I'm going to do a center exe. I'm going to set this distance to, let's call it 3. Right? And now I'm ready to put the center marks and things of that nature on. So I'm just going to jump over to annotation. Go ahead and go to center marks. And then I'm just going to place it on here. Zoom into here. I'm going to jump to the center layer command. And I'm just going to select both of these 2 lines here. Go ahead and hit escape. Go ahead and select here. I'm going to select the square and place it along that midpoint. Now I can either copy that or I can do it again. If you want some more practice with the center layer command, I don't blame you for going here. And now that I just looked at something, I see that I'm kind of missing some things on my section view here, and I'm going to clean that up here in a second. And what I mean by that is that on the inside of this, there should be a offset, right? Let's go ahead and go back to the Home tab and go to Offset and type in 10. And I want to put the offset on the inside of here. Right? Then I'm going to go to the Extend command. I want to extend this going up this direction. And then I'm going to hold down the Shift button and I'm going to trim it off here. Let's go ahead and trim off that portion there and there. And then up here on the top side of this, I did forget that there is an offset there, right? So what I'm going to do is use the offset, and I'm going to select from this endpoint to this endpoint to select my distance there. And that's going to allow me to offset here and here. Let's go ahead and use the fillet command to close the rest of these. So fillet radius is equal to 0. Go ahead and hit enter. And then select multiple. And that's going to allow me to go ahead and use the fillet that's located on here. Alright. Yeah, that looks a lot better. All right, let's go ahead and kind of finish out a little bit more of this. Let's go back to the center layer command. I'm going to select these two lines here. Go back to this command, do the exact same thing along this side. All right, so now that I have this, let's go ahead and adjust the scale of this since we have it set to 30. So I'm just going to select here and select 30. And then I'm going to type in REA on my command line, and that just stands for Regen All. Now I'll get those to show up. I'm going to select these two lines here. I do have my properties window still open. Let's go ahead and make that scale on those 0.75 and see if that does bring those center arrows in there. Yes, it does. So it brings those little tabs in between them. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and create a circle. So I'm just going to go to Circle, Center Radius. I'm going to go right at this center here, and I'm going to click it right on that endpoint. All right. I can also draw a line going from this endpoint to that center. Let's zoom in and kind of work with this a little bit. So I'm going to go to Extend, and I'm going to extend this all the way to here. I'll hold down the Shift button and trim off this portion here. Go ahead and escape out of this command. Let me go ahead and delete that. And then I'm going to use the Lengthen command. So modify, Lengthen, Delta. Let's make this number 5. I want to make it just a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to extend this one going that direction there and that direction there. All right. Let me zoom out a little bit. Let me go to use match properties. I'm going to select this center line here. And that's going to allow me to select this center and that one. Go ahead and hit escape. Now, once again, I do like my little dash line in between those to show up, so I'm going to select it. I'm going to go to properties, and let's see if 0.75 is enough to do it. So if 0.75 didn't do it, I'm going to go down a little bit more, 0.625. And now I can see that little dash is there. Okay. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to mirror this going down that direction. So I'm going to go to Mirror. Select this line here. Enter. And I'm just going to go from that endpoint going right across to this endpoint. Then I'm going to go to Mirror again, and I'm going to select both of these two. And I'm going to go across from this endpoint to this endpoint. Okay, so those are going to be all of the center marks that I'm going to need to do on this one. Let's go ahead and put some hatches onto this. So I'm going to go to Hatch. And give it a second. And now, just so it won't look like a blob there, I usually try to set my scale equal to my scale factor, and that's just kind of a good general reference that you can use here in the beginning. And I'll go to Pick Points. I'll click here. And I'm just clicking on the inside of these. Right? Let's go ahead and close the hatch creation here. Then I'm going to go back to Hatch. And let me zoom in a little bit more because I want to get just these hatches on the inside of here. Do the same on these other sides. And I'm going to change the angle on this one, right? So I'm just going to make this angle 135. Looks like I got them. I'm sorry, I should have put them at 90. There we go. So I'm just going to set them at 90 just so I can have those two to show up at a different angle. All right, close hatch creation. All right, and that's all the hatching and things that I need to do. And now we're finally made it to like the kind of last parts of this where we need to put a center on there. I mean, a section line and things of that nature. But before I do my section lines, let's go ahead and extend this one. So I'm going to select my center mark here. I'm going to go to the properties windows, and you can see where it says left and right extension. Let's go ahead and make these extensions just a little bit longer. So I'm going to make it 6 on this side and 6 on the other side. I'm just going to go ahead and use a kind of a quick arrowhead on the end of this one. And the way that I'm going to do that is with a quick leader. So I'm going to type in QL, enter. I'm going to click here. Let me go and turn my ortho back on. I'm going to come down this direction here, hit enter, and then hit another enter, right? And let's see if it's going to populate a center mark for me. Oh. And it didn't, which is okay. It means that I have to do my dimension style setup first, which is kind of what I expected. Let's go ahead and do that now. So underneath the annotation, I'm just going to click this icon here. I'm going to double click on annotative, go to modify. I'm going to start with the primary units tab. Let's just get rid of the trailing zeros. Underneath fit, there's nothing to do here. Underneath text height, I'm going to make it 0.125. And then underneath my symbols and arrows, I'm going to make that none. And then hit close and then close. Alright, so what I did now is I told it which dimension style to use. So when I use a quick leader now, I can come here. I can come down, I'll click here, and then I'll hit enter. And then I'll hit another enter. And then I'll escape out of that, right? Nope. I should have hit enter one more time, otherwise it leaves a jog in it. Let's go back to quick leader. Let's go down to here, enter, and then escape right there when you first get that arrowhead. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. Alright. And I'll do that one more time. I may have kind of went through that a little bit quick, so I'm just going to go to quick leader. I'm going to click here. I'm going to come down to about the distance that I want it. Do one more left click here. Go ahead and hit enter. When you see that arrowhead appear, go ahead and hit the escape button. Alright. Let's go ahead and move this now into position. So I'm just going to move it from that endpoint to that endpoint. If you want to make a match, you can always use the match property, select your center mark here, and then make your arrowhead match. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put an A on the top of this, right? Now, we're using a standard style, right? But I'm going to tell it that I want to use an annotative one, just so I can eliminate math out of my equation here. I'm going to select the drop down and check single line text. I'm going to adjust the justification to middle center. That's what the MC stands for. It's going to ask me to pick a middle center point. I'm just going to touch here and kind of track up here. That looks good enough for me. Now it's asking me for the height of this. Let's go ahead and make the height 0.1875. Go ahead and hit enter. Then another enter. And then I'm just going to type in A. Let's go ahead and make our caps lock on. Hit A, hit enter, and then hit escape, right? Let's go ahead and mirror this to the other side. So I'm just going to go to mirror, select both of those objects there, enter. Going from that endpoint to that endpoint. All right, so now we have a section line that's going across there. Let's go ahead and put our rest of our dimensions onto this. So I'm going to knock out my diameter dimensions first, right? So I can either switch over to the annotation tab, or I can use all of the ones that are located here. Either way is fine with me. I'm just going to use a diameter here. And I'm going to kind of do this a quicker way, just by selecting here. Just hit enter on your keyboard to go back. Select here. Go ahead and hit enter. Select this one. Enter one more time. And let's place it on here. Yep, that looks good. Go ahead and hit escape. I'm going to double click this dimension here, right? It should light up a different color around it when it's ready. I'm just going to make sure I'm in front of it. I'm going to type in 8x space. Kind of get to the back of it. Go ahead and hit enter. And I'll type in on %C 95 B dot C dot. And that BC stands for bolt circle if you're curious. Alright, go ahead and close the creation. Do the same up here. I'm just going to click on the 14. I'm going to get in front of it and I'll type in 8x space and then click here. Alright. So now I looked at this. That's mostly done. Let's go ahead and put a couple of linear dimensions on here. So linear. From that endpoint to here. And then one more linear dimension. From that endpoint to that endpoint, let's go ahead and come this direction, and it's set to 3. Now we can put and make it, 3 times or typical or some of that nature. So that's going to be up to you, but you can also double click it like I did with the other ones. Once it changes a different color, I'm going to type in 6x and give it a little space between it. I can do the same on this one. Just by double clicking it, 6x space. Click here. And we can either move one of these if you don't like that little tab that's kind of hanging over one of them. So it's okay to give it a little bit of extra space if that's what you want to do. Alright, let's take a look at this view. Let's use a linear dimension. From this endpoint to this endpoint. I'll go ahead and click here. Go an endpoint from that endpoint to that one. And then one more right from this endpoint to that endpoint. And then let's just go ahead and place it right on this endpoint here. Let's go ahead and take a look at our section view. Let's do a linear dimension from this endpoint to this one. And I'm purposely picking it in that order so I can kind of throw it up at the top. Meaning that I'm going to do a linear dimension from here. If I select the inside first and I select this as my outside, it remembers the outside is the side that you want to go ahead and put your dimension on. Alright, we need to tell it the height here, which is a distance from that endpoint to this one. And then let's put an overall dimension on here, right? And it looks like I may have needed to leave a little bit more room on my 2 dimensions here. Yep. So I have it going across here. And then I'm going to escape. And you can see that this does cross it a little bit. So I'm just going to select both of these. Right? And I'll move one of them. And I should be able to move the other one and kind of put it in line with this one. There we go. Alright. The last thing I need to do is go ahead and put the diameter symbol in front of here. So we're going to double click this like we was doing with the other ones. Just going to move over to the front of that. And that's going to be %%C. Alright. And then finally here at the bottom I need to label this, right? Because we have the section called out here as section A. We need to tell them that this is section A. So I'm going to go to single line text again. It should remember the last thing I did, which is go ahead and place a middle point. Let's go ahead and put our middle point right along here. So I just tracked off of that. The height of this, let's go ahead and make it 0.25. Enter. And then the rotation angle is going to be 0. And then we should be ready to type in, right? So I'm going to start off by typing in %%U, hit the space bar, and then I'm going to type in the section A-A, and then one more space afterwards. Do a left click somewhere and then hit escape, right? And zoom the extents. And that's going to be one completed drawing of everything. So this is some of these videos. I know they're going to be extra long, but you don't have to go and search for many videos. It's going to all be in one. I want to thank you for watching this one, especially if you stayed with me to the end, and hopefully you appreciated it. And always the isometrics are going to be kind of a tough thing to do, and I'll try to do them with most of the videos if they're not too complicated. This one had a little bit of work to it, but wasn't overly complicated. So thank you again for watching, and also leave me a comment and let me know if you do like these longer videos as opposed to me breaking them up into short ones, right? or if there's something else that you want to see, or maybe I made a mistake somewhere in here. Please let me know. All right. Thank you. Until next video. Bye-bye.